Chevra, welcome to the Schwartz family residence. It's a very special zechut to learn Torah in a place where we ate and we drank with my uncle, Alav Shalom. And the whole purpose of tonight is to give nachat ruach. To be able to give some type of positive feeling for my uncles in the Shema. Part of that positive feeling is you being here. So you being here together in his place with his family, that's already nachat ruach. Eating Denise's food, that's already nachat ruach. My uncle, the last conversation I had with my uncle in his life, because he FaceTimed me from the hospital, and we had a very technical issue we had to work out. It wasn't a big deal, but it was a kashrut issue. He was fighting with the person over there about kashrut. He was trying to explain to this person who lacked any understanding about kashrut what is kasher, what is not kasher, how it's going to work, because he was in a sealed room. And so I helped explain it to him, and okay, we'll talk later. And we never spoke later. But the last things that he was asking for, among them, was my aunt's food. So now you're being not just surrounded by friends and family of his, but you're being filled with things that made him happy. And as my uncle's matzeva said, and all of his children spoke about, my uncle really, really liked to learn Torah. What do I mean really, really liked to learn Torah? Last night, I finished teaching our Kehillat class. It was dedicated to Nishmat, my uncle. And everybody left. I don't know what happens at the end of classes. It's like the end of Shabbat. Everyone runs away. I don't know why they run away. Were they running away? You're here anyways, it's 10:15 at night. Like, what do you think? Get to bed at 10:20, it's going to be any better than 10:25? But people run away. They run. What? They run? It's a Yitzchak that runs. You know, when you leave a Beit HaKnesset, you're not allowed to run, right? You're allowed to run to the Beit HaKnesset, but when you leave the Beit HaKnesset, you have to walk slowly. Even, according to Sephardim, the minhag is we turn around, we bow, we walk backwards. Don't do that down the stairs. It's not safe. I finished the class, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me this moment. I'm sitting there with my wife. Elchanan had passed out.
And then I woke up again.
And then he woke up again. And my wife said, you know, your uncle would have been really proud of you tonight. And that was the best compliment that anybody could have given me. So those of you who are in Kehillat HaShamayim, you already know. Those who are not, I want to share with you. Tonight is a class as if I'm with the Kehillat, just our Kehillat, so forgive me if there's anything that I'll say that's different than what you've heard. I'm not speaking to the public. That's why we even moved the tables from the front yard to the backyard. We're hiding. University City is a dangerous place. So, a year ago, a little more than a year ago, we finished the 4th volume of Shulchan Aruch that we were studying together as a kollel. My uncle never missed a class. What do you mean never? My uncle, he came to the things that I missed. So I'm the rabbi of the Kehillat. He came to tefillot I didn't show up to. He came to the classes I didn't come to. He came to everything. It says more about him than it says about me. Okay? Let's look at it that way. Judge me favorably. And we were learning Shulchan Aruch. We finished learning Shulchan Aruch, and we were deciding, so which volume of Shulchan Aruch should we study next? And we decided we're going to talk about it. And then we said, okay, but we have some holidays coming up. Let's learn about that. And then the next thing we said was, listen, it's not fair to talk about which book we're going to decide while my uncle's still in the hospital. Let's just wait for him to come out, and he'll tell us which book. He'll cast his vote. We always vote. And we'll find out which book he wants to study, and if he tips the vote to one side or the other. And we waited. And we waited. And he never came back. And so he never cast his vote. And then it took a year because I was waiting. The people asked me, why are you not studying Shulchan Aruch? And subconsciously, my answer was, I was waiting. Every time the door of the Beit HaKnesset opens, I assume that my uncle is going to come inside. Hey, Jacob, forgive me, but you walk a lot like your father. Yes. And sometimes when I'm sitting in the front of the room, I don't have my glasses, I'm looking at my siddur, and I look up and I see you, like, wow, he came back. And I'm not disappointed that it's you. I'm not. But I thought it was going to be my uncle. And about a month ago, we sat down as a meeting in the kollel, and we said, listen, guys, we can't keep waiting. My uncle is waiting for us to start learning Shulchan Aruch already. He's tuned into all the classes. He doesn't need Zoom. And we're still not learning Shulchan Aruch. So we decided to start learning Shulchan Aruch together. And we chose a volume, and that volume is on its way from Israel right now to San Diego. But in the interim, all of the shiurim that we've been teaching have been dedicated to Nishmat, Yitzchak Daniel, and Moshe Ze'ev. And tonight's shiur is no exception to that. Tonight's shiur is dedicated to him. I wanted to take you into the writings of Rabbi Chaim David Halevy. Rabbi Chaim David Halevy is one of the most important Sephardic thinkers, in my opinion, of the last 100 years. Rabbi Chaim David Halevy, if you've never heard of him, it's likely because in most places outside of our Kehillat and a few other random places, they don't talk much about him. There was an intentional move to erase Rabbi Chaim David Halevy from history. Why? It's beyond the scope of today's shiur. But we've given those chachamim, as much as possible, a comeback in our Kehillat. Yesterday, I purchased a set of books. I saw it called Torah Emet of Rabbi Eliyahu Sassoon. Now someone asked me, so who is Rabbi Eliyahu Sassoon? I said, I don't know. I said, what's the book about? I said, I don't know. So why did you buy a 4-volume set of books? Let me tell you the answer to that question. I Googled Rabbi Eliyahu Sassoon, and I could not find a trace of him. I Googled his book, and I couldn't find a trace of him. And I said to myself, if I don't buy this set of books, where is the legacy of this chacham going to disappear to? And that's the weight that's on our shoulders. People ask, why do you guys do what you do? Why is your Kehillat here? Why did your uncle find this place so special? Let me tell you, when my uncle decided to join Kehillat HaShamayim the first day, it wasn't so easy for him. My uncle had a tremendous amount that was in limbo. People were watching him to see what would he do. Would he stay? Would he go? My uncle lost money. Denise might know the details more than me. He was involved in a certain business relationship that if he would have come to my Kehillat, would have gone sour. And he did it anyways. Because my uncle believed in the vision. Jacob talked about vision. The vision of Daniel. There's the vision of our prophet Daniel. There's a vision of my uncle, our friend, Daniel Schwartz. And I dedicate this shiur and the writings of Rabbi Chaim David Halevy to him. If you would like to find the source sheet, you're welcome to go to shiviti.org. I will not be offended if you're on your phone. That way you can play, what's the Angry Birds? I don't know what they play nowadays. Wordle, what are they playing now? You can play any one of those things while pretending to be in my class. It'll alleviate the boredom, I promise. Shiviti.org/Daniel Schwartz, all lowercase. If you don't know how to spell his name, you shouldn't be here. I'm joking. Daniel Schwartz, Schwartz. There's a link to the source sheet. You're welcome to click on that. I'm going to be reading entirely from the source sheet. It's a lot of Hebrew. Don't be scared. I'm going to translate everything into English. B'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. Shlomo HaMelech says a pasuk that my uncle used to say every Friday night for Denise. Piha patcha b'chokhmah. Her mouth she opened with wisdom. As opposed to what? There's a lot of people you talk to open their mouth and they're the stupidest person you ever saw in your life. Pirkei Avot says, Siyag l'chokhmah shtiga. One sign, one way to become wise is to be quiet. Why? As the saying goes, before you spoke, I thought you were stupid. But now that you speak, for sure I know you're stupid. There's some people, just keep your mouth quiet, everybody thinks you're smart. But this one, Piha patcha b'chokhmah. What is Piha? Her mouth, she opens with wisdom, that's my Andanis. Now when Shlomo HaMelech was writing this, he didn't know about my Andanis. So he meant about something else. The Gemara tells us in Masechet Berachot, Shlomo amar mikra zeh keneged David aviv. Shlomo HaMelech said this pasuk regarding his father, David. Shedar b'chamisha olamot. That lived in 5 different worlds, v'amar shira, and every time he moved into one of those worlds, he said a song. Shira, a song to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The name Shira is now very popular in the Halevy family. I have a cousin Shira, I have a sister-in-law Shira, I have a daughter Shira, I have a niece Shira, Baruch Hashem. Now they're going to say, which Shira? It's going to be a race to who gets shirahalevy@gmail.com. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. You know they're going to have the birthday. Dar b'mei imo v'amar Shira. He lived in the womb of his mother and he said Shira. יצא לאוויר העולם, David HaMelech came out from his mother to the world, ואמר שירה, and he said שירה. ינק משדי אמו, he nursed from his mother, ואמר שירה. ראה במפולת רשעים, he saw the downfall of the wicked, and he said שירה. נסתכל ביום המיטה ואמר שירה. He looked at the day of death, and when David HaMelech saw death, אמר שירה. He sang a song of thanksgiving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. שנאמר, like it says, we say this on Rosh Chodesh, ברכי נפשי את אדוני, my soul should bless Adonai. Adonai Elohai gadalta me'od. Adonai, my God, you are very great. Hod v'hadar lavashta. You wore glory, greatness. In Yerushalayim, I lived in Yerushalayim for 5 years. Omidot hayu reglenu b'sha'arayich Yerushalayim. And when the muazzin used to go on the loudspeaker, Allahu Akbar, that's what we're doing in the backyard, not the driveway. Yeah, he used to say that. I used to sing it with him. Why? Baruchi nafshi et Adonai. Adonai Elohai gadalta me'od. If only the rest of the nations of the world were not afraid to get on a loudspeaker, the rest of what they say they could skip. But the first part, Allahu Akbar, we agree. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is great. They have an opportunity. Why should they be able to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu instead of me? I don't want any kitru b'nam Yisrael. So I made sure whenever they say, I say. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, at least the Jews are praising me also. David HaMelech looks at death and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are the most magnificent ever. Uminayin shal yom hamidah ne'emar. How do you know that he was speaking about the day of death? Misof ha'inyan. You look at the end of the chapter. Shene'emar, like it says, tastir panecha yibahenu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when you hide your face, the people will get afraid. Tosef rucham yigvaun. When you take away their spirit, you ingather their spirit, they will turn into dead bodies. About that, David HaMelech says, Baruchi nafshi et Adonai. Rabbi Chaim David Halevy is trying to walk through with us this idea, why when a person sees death, is that amazing? Why would David HaMelech say shira about something as morbid as death? Why are people afraid of death? And what exactly is this culture surrounding mourning people who have passed? Shloshim, Yahrzeit, Azkarah, 12 months, 1 year, 2. What is the purpose of all of this behavior? In order to explain that to us, Rabbi Chaim David Halevy is going to explain the following. Mitziat adam mirechem imo. From the moment that a person leaves his mother's womb, ועד לגביעתו, until they pass away, יכול הוא לראות את גדולת אדוני והנהגתו בעולמו. There's all kinds of opportunities in your life to recognize the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Last night in Kollel, we studied the Tur. What do the Tur say? All of the morning blessings, why do we say them? To praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu in recognition. Pokeach ivrim, how do you open your eyes without saying thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that? Malbish alumim, how do you put on clothing? It's an opportunity to bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu. אבל לראותו גדול מאוד ומלא הוד והדר, but to see the true greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to see him full of greatness, אינו יכול אלא בשעת מיתה. That will only happen on the day you die. On the day that a person dies, they will see the true greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. וכמו שאמרו בזוהר הקדוש, I'm not a Kabbalist, but tonight we're learning from the writings of Rabbi Chaim David Halevy, and he was a Mekubal. It says in the Zohar, שבשעה שאדם נפטר מן העולם, that at the moment that a person passes from the world, רואה מראה קדוש, he sees a holy vision, שאינו יכול לראותו בחייו, that you're not able to see that vision in your life, ולכן צריך לכסות עיניו בעפר, and that's why we have a custom to cover the eyes of a person who passed away with dirt. Why? Because that way they see the vision that's so great. ועוד אמרו, and furthermore the rabbis say, בשעה שיוצא אדם מן העולם, מתווספת ברוח עליון, that the moment when a person passes from this world, he gets filled with a tremendous, lofty spirit. ורואה מה שלא ראה בימיו. And he's able to see things in holiness that they never saw his whole life. תוסף רוחם, יגבעון. כי לא ירני האדם וחי. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, a person will not see me and live. בחייהם אינם זוכים, אבל במיתתם זוכים. Bereshit Rabbah says, what does it mean nobody will see me and live? In your lifetime, you will never see HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the clarity and beauty that you will see him on the day you die. ועוד אמרו, and furthermore, אין הנשמה יוצאת מן הגוף עד שנגלית עליה שכינה. So that was a Gemara, not a Midrash. This is a Midrash. שנגלית עליה שכינה, ואז הנפש מתוך שמחה וחביבות יוצאת לקראתה מן הגוף. The soul doesn't leave the body until HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself to the body. The Shekhinah reveals itself. And once our soul sees the Shekhinah, our Shekhinah dances out of our body into the embrace of the Shekhinah. This is what happens when a person passes away. Al pi zeh, so based on this, Yuvanu divrei rabotenu hetev. You can now understand the words of our rabbis very clearly. Kshistakel David biyom hamita. When David HaMelech saw the day of death, השיג השגה רוחנית נפלאה שאדם יכול להשיגה באותה שעה בלבד. David HaMelech received some divine inspiration that only a person on the day of their death is able to recognize. ולכן אמר שירן, David HaMelech therefore wrote a song for that day. על אותה שעת מיתה, אדוני אלוהי גדלת מאוד, הוד והדר לבשת. My God, you are great. You are dressed in glory. הוא מראה השכינה. David HaMelech is describing to you and me what he saw when he saw the Shekhinah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. וראיה של אותה שעה נתכוון מסוף העניין. That's exactly what that proof text at the end means when it tells you about the death of a human being. כי באותה שעה, at that moment, עומדת הנשמה להיפרד מהגוף. At that moment that the neshama is about to separate herself from our body. ולהידבק בצור מחצבתה אשר ממנו חוצבה. That comes to separate herself from our body and cling back, melt into that soul, that Shekhinah that is the Kadosh Baruch Hu. וזו הטובה הגדולה אשר לא יכול לצפות אדם כל ימי חלדו. Kehillat is an interesting word. Kehillat also means rest, but it also means life. There's a different shiur. A person's whole life, they can't expect to see what they'll see on that last day of life. ולכן דרשו רבותינו לפסוק, and that's why our rabbis tell us about the pasuk, וירא אלוהים את כל אשר עשה, והנה טוב מאוד. Hashem sees everything that he created, and he said that it was good. בתורתו של רבי מאיר מצאו כתוב. In the Torah of Rabbi Meir, he had a different word. What do they find written there? והנה טוב מות. Rabbi Meir says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw the world, and not me'od, not the world was very good, but death was good. That's very interesting. Rabbi Meir had a different Torah. His Torah was missing letters like ours. If you want to do an Agadata class on this Gemara, I'm willing to do with you. Od darshu sham. Our rabbis taught us there. Hine tov me'od ze malach ha'chaim. Tov me'od is the angel of life. V'hine tov me'od ze malach ha'mavet. And that's also the angel of death. Harbe pirushim nemru l'divrei rabotenu ele. There are many different commentaries here. V'la'aniyut dati, but according to me, says Rabbi Chaim David Halevy, nira kavanatam, it seems to be their intention, ki be'emtzaut ha'mavet nifredet ha'neshama u'midabeket bevora v'yotzara tzur machtzavta. That the neshama is able, through death, to not go somewhere bad, but to go somewhere she has never been before. To return back to the embrace of the Shekhinah. וכבר כתבנו באורך רב. Rabbi Chaim David Halevy said, I already wrote at length earlier, binyan hisharut hanefesh, regarding the eternity of the soul, the everlastingness of the soul. וכאן רק נוסיף כי הדבר מבואר בתורה הנביאים וכתובים. So here I only wish to add that this is explicit in the Tanakh. יעקב לפני מותו אמר. Yaakov Avinu, before he passes away, what does he say? V'shachavti im avotai. I will lay down with my forefathers. Kinat amita shchiva. He calls death laying down. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not dead. I'm simply laying down with my forefathers. Im avotav k'adam chai, like anybody else who's alive. Your kid comes to you in the middle of the night and they get into your bed. Hopefully at a certain age, like if they're 25, they shouldn't be doing that anymore. But when they're very little, and they climb into your bed, that's exactly, Yaakov Avinu felt, I'm returning back to my parents' bed. I'm like that child that is going back to, not just life. If you ask a kid, where do you prefer to sleep? Of course I prefer to sleep there. It's the best life I could have had. וכך כינתה תורה את מותו, and that's what the Torah says, ויאסף אל עמיו, that he gathers back to his people. He was gathered back to his people. כאדם הנוסע לבית אבותיו אל עמו, like a person who's traveling to his parents' house or to his family's home. It could be that if you're visiting your in-laws, then the visit is literally death. Yeah, it's like visiting death. But if you're going to your parents, then it's like the life. It's returning back to life. וכלשון זאת נאמר גם באברהם. And this is also what Avraham Avinu said, וישמעאל שחזר בתשובה וגם ביצחק, and Yishmael, according to those who say that he did teshuvah, and Yitzchak Avinu alav shalom, all of them use similar terms. Death is not final. Death is gathering back to a place that's good. וכן אמרה אביגיל לדוד. Somebody tell me the story of Abigail, why she comes to David HaMelech?
No. No, Naval, she wanted to kill her husband. David, her husband was a lack of gratitude. King David kept an eye watch his flock. And when he asked him for some help, he refused. And so King David decided time for him to die. She came to him to ask for the life of her husband.
Chazak Baruch. Can I ask you some questions? How tall was Paro?
Very midget.
How small?
Says like Etzba.
Like an Amma, right? Tell me something else. Can you tell me the story about Avraham Avinu inside of the fiery furnace?
He jumped in.
What happened with Avraham Avinu? Who's the king who puts him in a fiery furnace?
Nimrod.
Nimrod. And what happens to Nimrod? Nimrod takes him, puts him inside, yeah? Tell me, why did that happen? What did Avraham Avinu do wrong?
Because his brother, Haran.
Destroyed the...
Tell me the story of Avraham Avinu and his father Terach and the idols.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Right, his father was building idols, and what did he do?
He chopped them.
And why am I asking you all these questions? I'm speaking to my community, remember? Chevra, how do you all know Midrashim? What's written inside of the Tanakh, we don't know. I should ask you why Abigail is coming to David HaMelech. I'm not asking you to tell me which chapter, which pasuk. I'm not telling you to read it to me, but to why did Abigail come to David HaMelech is more important than the story that's found in the Midrash of Avraham Avinu breaking his parents' idols. Who knows if the story ever happened? And if it happened, but in the Tanakh, Abigail comes because David HaMelech is about to kill her husband Naval. And she gives him all kinds of blessings, fantastic blessings. There's some interesting things that happen there between them. For right now, one of the blessings she says, "V'hayeta nefesh Adoni tzerura b'tzror hachayim et Adonai Elohecha." May the soul of my master David be bound. I'm going to translate it traditionally. Bound up in the bonds of life with Adonai, his God. She's blessing David HaMelech. When do we use that today?
When someone is dead.
When someone is dead, at the bottom of the tombstone, no? What does it say? Denise, what's the last line? It's Taf Nun Tzadi Bet Hey Tieh Nishmato Tzerura B'tzror HaChaim. May his soul be bound up in the eternal bonds of life. That's it. So she's cursing David HaMelech, he should die. Vet Nefesh Oivecha. What about the souls of your enemies, David HaMelech? Yikalena Betoch Kaf HaKala. That they should be Kala. Katuv B'Torah Kala. They should be catapulted in the catapult of the Kafa Kala. What is that? Now I let you tell me Midrashim. Go. Okay, non Midrashim. Where are my Mekubalim? What is a Kafa Kala? Julian, I saw you going like this. Tell me. Yeah, very good. So explain.
It's to like see what your potential was, and then you get.
No, don't give me the explanation. Tell me what you were saying about the slingshot.
Like the soul suffers when Hashem kind of shows the potential of what they could have accomplished, what they accomplished, and the soul kind of.
Okay, the Mekubalim talk about exactly what Julian got their answer right. So if you want to know where your Mekubal is, he's sitting right there. Yes? He takes only $180 for Berachot at the end of the evening. Yes? And do you take a Venmo or your... So over there, he said correctly, which is the Mekubalim believe that the Neshama gets catapulted from one side of the universe to the other. And that's a nice explanation. Nirali al pi Chasidut, that it's about where you could be and where you were. But it's a suffering that a person goes through. Abigail is telling him, I bless you that you should be bound up with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and your enemies should be suffering until the end of time. Who said the Jews don't believe in eternal damnation? V'tirgem Yonatan ben Uziel. And Yonatan ben Uziel translates into Aramaic. V'tehen nafshad derabuni geniza b'genaz chay alma kadam Adonai Elohecha. May the soul of my master be ganuz. What is ganuz? Geniza. What is a geniza? You bury holy books. Ashkenazim call it shemus. Yeah? The Geniza, where they bury holy words and books and things that are ruined. I mean, they're covered. It should be, my master David should be covered up by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'kachem divrei rabotenu, it's exactly the words of our rabbis who say, Rabbi Eliezer says, Nishmatam shel tzadikim genuzot tachat kisei hakavod. The souls of the tzadikim are hidden under HaKadosh Baruch Hu's throne. By the way, I'm asking all of you, you all know that this is not literal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have a throne. He doesn't sit. But if you were to imagine where the tzaddikim are, then you should imagine they're right with HaKadosh Baruch Hu underneath his throne. Kind of like if your kid keeps something hidden under his mattress, or your kid keeps something hidden and nobody else could take it, or that's exactly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing that with the tzaddikim. V'nishmatam shel reshaim, what about the souls of the wicked? מתערפות ומשוטטות מסוף העולם ועד סופו ואין להם מנוחה שנאמר יקלענה בתוך כף הקלה. It's exactly what it means. They'll be slingshotted, catapulted from one side of the universe to the other. That's also not literal, obviously. And that is the punishment of the רשעים. המתבונן בעומק הדברים יראה שהם פשט אמיתי של המקרא. And if you look simply, you'll realize that this is the meaning of the verse. וכשמתאר קהלת. And then now Kehillat comes along. And Kehillat explains that Yom HaMavet, the day of death. What does Kehillat tell us? Poteach be'omro. Everyone reads Kehillat.
Yeah.
The Ashkenazim have a good minhag. They read Kehillat once a year. At least once a year, people should read Kehillat. If you could live by Kehillat, even better.
It's hard to read Kehillat.
It's hard to read Kehillat, like it's hard to read a lot of things that are inside of our Tanakh, which is why we don't read them, and instead we read the little Midrash says. Kehillat Yom HaMavet Poteach be'omro, and he says, what does he tell us? Uzchor et borecha. Remember your Creator. Bimei bechurotecha, in the days of your youth. Ad asher lo yavo yimei hara'a. Remember HaKadosh Baruch Hu before the bad days come. Now, Rabbi Chaim David Halevy skips a few pesukim. That's not Kehillat clear straight here. Ki holech adam el bet olamo, because ultimately every person is going to reach his final resting place. V'savevu bashuk hasofedim, and the eulogizers, they will walk around the marketplace. What are the sofedim? What are they? It's a job. What kind of job is that?
To praise the dead.
Have you ever seen a Muslim funeral?
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, it's in Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch. Part of what you have to do for a person who dies, you have to hire miyalalot. What are miyalalot?
They cry for him.
They're women, not men. If you imagine doing this, you're going to get women to speak out loud at an Orthodox funeral. Hashem Yishmo. But you have to hire them, and they have to scream and wail at the top of their lungs. They're professionals. They do this. I once knew a chazan who did this. Yom Kippurim, his whole job was how much, oh, like that. Why people cry? You cry. You cry because he's a bad chazan, or you cry, you cry because he's inspiring you to cry. But that's his job. The sofedim, they're the people you hire. You ever seen a sofed before? How many times have you been to a funeral where the rabbi gets up and speaks for 25 minutes about the person, and he never met this person in his whole life? And he has a list of things. Oh, Gertrude was such a great tennis player, and she was the most amazing grandmother to her 3 little kittens. And you hear this? The rabbi never met Gertrude in his whole life. His the killed children, they just paid $500 so the rabbi should come do a funeral. That's a sofed. That's a literal, meaning every person is going to die, and they're going to hire someone to eulogize you after 120 years. That's life. Life means you'll be dead, and people will speak about you afterwards. And if they can't find somebody who likes you, they're going to find a professional. And I was at a Levaya not so long ago with my wife. We were there with the children of the lady who passed away. And the rabbi who was doing the funeral said, is there anybody here who would like to say something nice about your mother? And the child said, there's nothing nice to say about my mother. And so the rabbi said, is there anybody here who has anything nice to say about her? And my wife said, come on, you have to speak. So I spoke. And let me tell you something. This was the kind of lady that if I had something nice to say about her, that anybody should have something nice to say about her. But he said it. Why? Somebody has to say it. So I became a professional sofed then. Vayashov ha'afar el haaretz, and the dust will return back to the earth, keshehaya, just like it was originally. V'aruach tashuv el Elohim asher netana, and the body returns to the earth, and the neshama of a person will return back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu exactly where it came from. Shlomo HaMelech is explaining exactly what Rabbi Chaim David Halevy has been telling us. זה אחד מן המקראות שבהם מבוארות השראת הנפש בצורה ברורה ביותר. This is one of the pesukim, the few pesukim in the Tanakh, which explicitly teach us about what happens to the neshama after we die. There's a piece of Rabbi Avraham ben Ezra, I'm going to skip it. ואותה רוח שבה אל האלוהים אשר נתנה כדי לעמוד בפניו בדין. And why does that spirit return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That spirit returns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order to be judged, to see what did it do in its lifetime. ורבותינו העמיקו דיוקם ועיונם במקרא. And our rabbis analyze this pasuk. ולמדו ממנו עניין העמידה בדין באופן נפלא. And they speak about this final judgment that a person will experience in a wondrous way. כי הרוח שבה אל האלוהים אשר נתנה. Because the soul of a person returns back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. כדי להתעדן בגן עדנה. To go back and enjoy Gan Eden. אבל מתי זוכה היא לכך? But when does the nefesh merit דני סבתא עוזבת? לילה טוב סבתא, thank you so much for being with us.
לילה טוב, בטי.
לילה טוב. חבר'ה, סבתא, you know how old she is? Till 120 years old. When Safta gets up and walks out of the room, you have a mitzvah mideoraita, a biblical commandment to stand up for her. More than you have a mitzvah to put on tzitzit, more than you have a mitzvah to wear a kippah. כל הכבוד. זה לפי המקובלים. לפי הפוסקים עד 70 זה בסדר. ברוך השם. Isa. But you know, according to halakha, forgive me for the ladies here, according to halakha, when is a person considered old? The poskim say 70, the mekubalim say 60. But there's an answer in Yoreh De'ah. Maran says, when a woman agrees to be called Safta. Once she accepts with happiness the title Safta, that's okay. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. Judaism, age is considered wisdom. Let's continue. I want to... When does the soul finally find this peace? Rabbi Pinchas ורבי חלקיה בשם רבי סימון אמרו, they say, מתי תשוב הרוח אל אלוהים אשר נתנה? כששב העפר אל הארץ כשהיה. When the soul returns, when the body returns back to the earth, ואם לאו, and if not, ואת נפש אויביך יקלענה בתוך כף הקלה. והדגש מונח לפי דרשת רבותינו על מילת כשהיה. אם העפר הוא הגוף שנוצר מן העפר שב אל הארץ כשהיה, on page 426, היינו כפי שהיה בבואו לעולם נקי מעבירות. When does a person's soul rest? When a person's soul returns to the earth, when a person's body returns to the earth, כשהיה, just like it was. How was a person's body born? They were born without avirot. You ever seen a baby? Which avirot does a baby do? Who do they steal from, lie from? Maybe they steal some people's sleep, but who do they steal? Nothing. Who do they hurt? Whose feelings? Nobody. If a person's body returns back to the earth with the same purity that they came out from Shamayim, that's exactly when the neshama will have rest. אז הרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה למנוחתה להתעדן במקום מחצבתה בגן עדן. ולכן, and therefore, נשמתו של צדיק, the soul of a righteous person. What is it? I need you, please, because some people learn Chassidut. What is the halachic definition of a tzaddik? More mitzvot than avirot. What is the halachic definition of a rasha? The opposite. Less, more avirot than mitzvot. And what is a benoni? Somebody who's exactly in the middle. We don't know if he is good or bad. Yes? Most of us are tzaddikim. Here, all of us. But a tzaddik who really understands what is tzadkut, מתהווה is always yearning, מתי תצא מן העולם הזה שהוא הבל כדי להתענג בעולם הבא. The Zohar says in Parashat Vayira that the soul of a tzaddik is always yearning to leave this world, which is hevel, which is nothingness, and to go to olam haba. Now I have to tell you, I have a hard time reading this to you. This is obviously the opinion of the Zohar. It seems to be a machaloket between the rabbis who are Kabbalists and those who are not. Yesterday was the Hilulah of Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom. Yes?
Yeah,
Zayin Adar.
What do we do on the Hilulah of Moshe Rabbeinu? There's an old minhag. What's the old minhag?
Pray.
To fast. Come on, guys. Oh no, we're going to start a course here. Tanakh and Shulchan Aruch, yes? Now, when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai passed away, now I'm not convinced Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai passed away in Lag BaOmer, but let's assume, if anyways he's the rabbi of the Mekubalim, we have to trust the Mekubalim when they tell us when he passed away. Rabbi Yosef Masas was very politically correct. He said, Lag BaOmer, the day in which the Mekubalim believed that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai passed away. So, on Lag BaOmer, what do?
Hilula.
Bar Yochai, Nimshach Ashrecha, dancing, fire, barbecues, the whole thing. Moshe Rabbeinu dies, we're sad. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai dies, we're happy. Min hastam is two different types of chachamim. Moshe Rabbeinu is the chacham who goes up to heaven. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, let me wipe out the Jewish people. You can stay with me. You don't have to go back down to those crazy people who make your life miserable. And the Jewish people, trust me, they made HaKadosh Baruch Hu's life miserable. Moshe Rabbeinu. Sorry, what did I tell you? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Also, they make Moshe Rabbeinu's life. It's a Freudian slip. They made Moshe Rabbeinu's life miserable. Yesterday, Fabi and I were talking. Fabi is our family member over there. Fabi, Untitled.
Where's the kid?
We're talking about her pastor and having a conversation about being a communal leader. Rabbi Yosef Masas and Nachalat Avot, in his commentary in Pirkei Avot, he writes that a community leader is like a lion. It's like a person who you tie him up and you put him in front of a lion. If the lion is hungry, he's going to eat him now. And if he's not hungry, he'll devour him later. But anyway, sooner or later, they're going to eat him alive. Says Rabbi Yosef Masas, that's the job of a community leader. Moshe Rabbeinu, he should say, Chalas, I'm done with this world, I'm staying up there. Who needs these human beings, these Jews? But he comes down anyways. That action of Moshe Rabbeinu shows us that he chooses to live in this realm more than he chooses to be in another realm. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is almost the opposite experience entirely. According to the Zohar, when he passes away, the house is surrounded by fire, almost like Elisha Hanavi. He goes up in a poof of fire. And that's why they celebrate his death. Moshe Rabbeinu's death we mourn because he didn't want to leave us. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he was itching to go. And once he left, we celebrated that. Rabbi Halevy, he writes, it is forbidden for a human being to despise this world. In contemporary Orthodox Judaism, due to the influence of Kabbalah and Chassidut, there's been a tremendous push to despise this world. They even someone gave me a bracha on my birthday. Hashem should bless you with in physical and spiritual. I looked and I said, what are you talking about? Tell me the Hebrew word for physical. Don't answer. I know you know Hebrew. The Hebrew word doesn't exist. Spiritual and physical. How do you say spiritual in Hebrew? Ruchaniyut. I challenge you to go Google that term and find the earliest time that term was used to mean what you think it means. The word nature, Mother Nature. How do you say that in Hebrew?
Teva.
Teva. But I urge you to look in the writings of our Chachamim, and every time the word Teva is used, that's not what it means. What does Teva mean? The nature of the person, meaning the character traits of that person. Ki Teva ha'adam. But not about nature. That doesn't have a term. Ruchaniyut doesn't exist. There's no such thing as spirituality. I'm digressing from my point. The Kohen Gadol, if you would tell him, how do I be a more spiritual person? He would look at you and say, I have no idea what you are talking about. The Kohen Gadol is busy killing cows on a spiritual endeavor. Meaning, what you think is spiritual, the Kohen Gadol, we take the holiest thing in the world and we write it not on gold and not on silver, we write it on a dead cow. And that's Kadosh. We kiss that Torah. If you were to write a Torah on gold, it wouldn't be allowed to go in Aron Kodesh with Or and Sidur. He told me that he puts a Sidur, so now I picked on you, Or. You couldn't put a gold Torah in there because it's not holy. Kiddusha is nothing spiritual. Let's read here. But now I'm on Mekubal, so we're going to read according to Mekubalim. Perhaps that's the subconscious reason for why people are so afraid of death. Rabbi Chaim David Halevy, in his commentary in the Torah, he asks, if you were going to walk down the street right now, imagine it's Governor Drive on a Friday night, and you're walking at 2 o'clock in the morning, because already at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody in Governor Drive, but 2 o'clock is even scarier. 2 o'clock, you're walking there, and you see, lying on the sidewalk, a dead body. What do? Run, you run, run. Everyone runs. Oh my gosh, run. Let me ask you a question. You're walking down Governor Drive, and across the street you see somebody else walking down Governor Drive. His iPhone is in his earpods, he's jogging. What do? You just walk away. Rachel said the right answer though. Said Rabbi Chaim David Halevy, what on earth could a dead body do to you? You could walk over him, around him, dance on him. He can't do anything to you. The guy with the iPhone jogging down the street, he could kill you. Why are you so afraid of dead people, but you're not afraid of living people? Rabbi Chaim David Halevy has an entire article dedicated to the psychology of why we're so afraid of death. Here he says in one sentence, this is the reason why many people are subconsciously afraid of death. כי לכאורה הרי המוות היא תופעה טבעית ומחויבת, והיה מן הראוי לקבלו בכל הפשטות וללא פחד כלל. Death is simply natural. That's what Shlomo HaMelech said. Kehillat, everybody's going to die one day and the mourners will go around the market. It's not the end of the world, but it's not a big deal. אבל ייתכן שהפחד הוא instinctivi. That's not a Hebrew word. מפני הצפוי לאדם. It's instinctual to a person. Instinctive. You say it in English. מפני הצפוי לאדם, כאשר יעמוד בדין. Really, subconsciously, what we're afraid of is not death. We're afraid of that meeting with our Creator. We're afraid of the reckoning between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what we're afraid of. וכאן נעוץ סוד שילוש נפשם של ההולכים בדרכי אדוני, שלוות נפשם, מחילה, של ההולכים בדרכי אדוני ושומרים מצוותיו שאינם יראים מן המוות. And when you find people who are truly God-fearing individuals that follow in the path of Torah, I'm not talking about religious people, that's not the term. Really genuinely Ovdei Hashem, someone who identifies, I am an Eved Hashem. You will see how calm they are when they talk about death. I'm not so afraid of death. They don't run away from it. If it happens, it happens. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's planned anyways. Because they're also not afraid of the reckoning that they will have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. וכיוון שאין איש צדיק אשר יעשה טוב ולא יחטא. But because there is no tzaddik in the world who does only good and never does bad, מצווים החיים לאחר הסתלקות קרובם להשתדל ולעזור לנשמתו. It's the job, therefore, of his relatives and friends of a tzaddik who passed away. My uncle. This whole purpose of the shiur was to reach this. It's the job of those who loved him to make sure that we can give him zichuyot, bishat omdo badin, in those moments where he stands for judgment. And we have a few methods to do that with. Kaddish, Azkarot, Limud Torah, learning Torah, Tzedakah, ve'od. There are opportunities in which we do something for someone else, and that gives them zichuyot. Now, how this works is really the topic of a different shiur. But for right now, maybe you might understand the shiur I gave you a few years back, that we shouldn't say hashkavot too much. That once a person passes away, 12-month mark, let's say, not to say hashkavot anymore. The next year, we wait to say hashkavah. Not to think too much about the passing of a person. Why? Because they're not in judgment anymore. But every time you start, or you skull, or you start saying those words, you now summon them in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu for judgment. Why? Now, maybe on the year anniversary, there's a time of din, so now we're doing that in order to help. But why next week? Why are you going to do that to a person? You love them, don't you? So when you love them, you abandon, not them, but you abandon anything that could give judgment to them. Those who have minhagim to light candles, we stop lighting a candle. Not because we don't care, because it's important to stop now, to show that we no longer believe this person is in deen. It's why the son stopped saying Kaddish already. Because we're showing we don't believe there's any more reason. He's in a good place. He's now free of averot. Anything that we do, any minhag that you have to commemorate that person, now it has to stop. It has to go away. And next year it's time again. Next year you light a candle again. Next you put away everything. And next year it comes back again. V'yisod hakol hem habanim. And now I'm speaking to Jacob, and to Ben, and Doron, and Netanel. The most important thing that can give ilui neshama, an uplifting in heaven, for a person is their children. Hamitzuvim b'chvod horehem. We are commanded to respect our parents. It's a biblical requirement. U'chedivrei rabotenu al hapasuk kabed et avicha v'et imecha. Our rabbis of blessed memory tell us you must honor your father and mother b'chayav in their lifetime. Vilu acharei moto, and after they die. Shema patuhu, you might think maybe I'm exempt now from honoring parents. Lo ken, that's not true. Shagam acharei moto, because even after the death of a parent, nitchayev bichvodo biyoter, we're even more obligated to respect them than we were in our lifetime. Shim holecha ben b'derech chataim, because if we, the children, walk on a path that is not righteous, mivazehu et aviv v'oseno kalon, we end up disgracing and disrespecting our father who brought us to this world. Vim holech b'derech yishara, but if we walk in a good way, in a righteous way, in a just way, u'ma'asav metukanim, and our behavior is correct, Torah, mitzvot, also includes not just all of the things between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, between us and other human beings also. That's the other half of the Torah. Vadai ze mechabed et aviv. This certainly respects our father. Mechabado ba'olam hazeh b'fnei bnei adam. We respect him in front of human beings in this world, meaning when they see us and say, oh, that's Dan Schwartz's son, look how he behaves. In a positive way. We give him honor. ומכבדו בעולם הבא אצל הקדוש ברוך הוא שחס עליו ומושיבו בכיסא הכבוד. And in the next world, the Zohar tells us in Parashat Bechukotai, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees our children acting in righteousness, He takes us and puts him under his throne, along with the other tzaddikim. וכיוון שהבן הוא עצם מעצמיותיהם, הוא בשר מבשרם של הוריו מולידיו. And because children are literally the flesh of their parents. And in this I'm going to add, my aunt Denise is also flesh of my uncle. Right? That's what the Torah says? Al ken ya'azov, a person has to leave, v'daviv et imo, their mother and father, v'davak b'ishto, and he will cling to his wife, v'hayu lebasar echad, and they will become one flesh. Etzem me'atzmi, a bone of me, myself, mamash myself. So anyone who's part of the body of my uncle, kol ma she'osim habanim lilu nishmat horehem, anything that we do, lilu nishmat, our parents, גורמים להם נחת רוח בהצילם אותם מעומק הדין ובהעלות נשמתם למקום מנוחתה. Not only do we protect them from judgment greater than any hashkava or any kaddish, the way that we live our life, we also allow them, we give them the entry ticket. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, come and sit under my throne. Sit with all the other tzaddikim in Gan Eden. There's a section here I wanted to read, but it's long. I know what time it is. I'm not going to read it. But the importance of saying Kaddish, the importance of learning Torah, where does that come from? I want to skip to you to one last piece. On the bottom of 427. וברור שזהו יסוד ושורש המנהג. This is the origin, therefore, of the custom. להרבות בתורה ותפילה ומעשים טובים, to increase Torah, tefillah and good actions. My aunt mentioned at the cemetery, it's nice to speak, but actions are what are important. You've been struggling with mitzvot lately? I don't know which mitzvah I know which mitzvah I struggle in. The mitzvot you struggle in are different, they're unique, they're yours. Maybe tomorrow, don't struggle with it so much. Or say, this struggle that I'm struggling to do good, I want to be like my uncle. I want to pray like my uncle. I want to have kavanah in my tefillin like my uncle. I want to be the last guy competing to say the Amidah. You know, his competitor was Baruch. Now we wait for Baruch. Should live and be well till 120 years. But there was a person who every Amidah, it was Tuesday afternoon in the Beit Knesset, in his Amidah, and I know people who Yom Kippurim, their Amidah doesn't look like that. And don't think it's because Hebrew reading is slower, nothing to do with that. The kavanah, real kavanah. I still hear in my ears, my uncle, I hear my uncle say, I know which Tehillim was supposed to say. And the Selichot, I knew which Anenus he said. Anenu, I know which one. I know which part of Imafes Rova Hakin. I know. Azkarah. And then I hear Jacob's voice saying that. When I hear Netanel or Doron or Ben saying that, then my uncle's not dead. He's simply in a different realm, and his body that is still here is still praying for him. Amirat Kaddish v'haftarah b'toch Yud Chodesh, saying the Kaddish and the haftarah in the 12 months. I'm on the last page, 428. V'chen midei shana b'shana b'yom ha'pkeda, and every year on the 12-month mark. And there's one last warning Rabbi Chaim David Halevy has for us. If we realize that the reason we're saying Kaddish, and the reason we're reading the Haftarah, and the reason we're doing mitzvot, is to give nachat ruach, so we don't want to do any averot, especially not fighting with people. I told you I was once in a Beit Knesset in Haifa. True story. It was my cousin. My cousin's bar mitzvah. They booked the Beit Knesset, they made a kiddush, they brought food, They come to the Beit Knesset, he's supposed to read, poor guy, he never spent time in the Beit Knesset. He practiced the maftir and haftarah. And what happened? An old man came to the Beit Knesset, today is the Azkarah of my father, I need to read the haftarah. Now listen, come on, the bar mitzvah kid, it's his only chance. He's practicing a whole year, the guy has stage fright already. Now you're coming? He tells the rabbi, I'm a member in this Beit Knesset. Who's this kid? So what if they book the place? I'm a member here. They tried speaking with the man. Listen, it's about mitzvah. I don't care about mitzvah. I care about my father's soul. Arguing with stubborn Jews in the Beit Knesset is the worst mistake in the world. The rabbi, he clearly understood, And he decided that this man was more stubborn than my aunt was, not this aunt, another one. And he told him, I'm sorry, but your son can't get Aliyah. Do you know what it's like to prepare for a whole year? You come to Beit Knesset, and some old guy, because of honor to his father, he needs to take away what you've been practicing for a whole year. Try explaining to this man, you know what you did for your father? Not only did you not do a mitzvah for him, now your father's up there giving judgment to someone else's grandfather. By the way, you want my grandfather to go against your grandfather? Here he says, V'naskir midrash rabotenu, let's conclude with the midrash from our rabbis. Gadol hashalom. Peace is the greatest thing in the world. Shegam hametim tzrichim shalom. Because even the dead, they need peace. Shneimar, v'ata tavo al avotecha b'shalom. And you, not you, somebody else, should come to your forefathers in peace. V'dai sheyesh midrash zeh mashmayot amukot meod. For sure there are deeper understandings of this midrash. Ach mashmauto apeshuta biyoter hi kipshutam. The simplest meaning is what it means. Ugdolim divrei rabotenu. And the words of our rabbis are very great. And it's very important that a person should not fight when they're trying to really do good for the soul of their parents. Because they also need peace with you. And nothing good will come to them when we fight. And great is peace. And like I said earlier in the cemetery, no family is perfect. Sure, if the Schwartz family, we asked them, are you perfect? They would say, we're not perfect. But something they did really good, a really good job at. And listen, as a rabbi, I'm privy to things you're not privy to. But I'm not privy to the things that only the Schwartzes know. What I can tell you is that as they've presented to us, the Schwartz family has presented to us as a united front. They're one family. They're Dan's wife, they're Dan's kids, it's Dan's brothers and sisters, it's his mother. They're one family. The greatest nachat that could ever be given to him is what's happening right now. Dan's family is also on Zoom here, I see them. How beautiful, how special is it when brothers are able to sit together? That's the greatest Ilui Neshama we could give to anybody. That's my blessing to all of you. In particular to my aunt, to my cousins. There's a yetzer that comes into the world. We get older, we get bigger, we get a little more foolish, and we have all kinds of good reasons to fight with each other. And trust me, there are really good reasons to fight with each other. I can make a list if you want. But none of them are worth it. Aside from that funeral I told you about before. I never was at a funeral of a person who said, I'm so happy I didn't go to their house that Friday night for dinner. I never heard it in my life. I never heard a person who didn't regret. I know how much my uncle, when there was fighting inside of the family, I don't think you understand the greatness here. I'm going to explain to you something. I told you I was done. We spoke about this week about Rabban Gamliel. He was thrown out of the yeshiva. He's replaced by Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. And where does Rabban Gamliel go?
Back to the study.
Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And he stays in the yeshiva. He doesn't leave because it's more important to learn Torah than to get away. And you can imagine how hard it is for Rabban Gamliel. He single-handedly saved the Jewish people. They hate him. I mean, that's how he should feel. But he stays. It's more important. My uncle had no logical reason to ever come to me for advice on anything. I'm his nephew. I'm younger than him. He knew me in diapers.
He used to babysit you.
He used to babysit me. That's right. He used to toss me in the air to give all the mothers a heart attack. He taught me, like he taught my kids, all those funny sounds and how does an elephant go ooga or whatever else he does. He taught me all those things. There are people here who I was a little baby in their house. You know who you are. I went to school with some of your kids. There's no reason in the world that you should be sitting here in a class from somebody many years your junior and who has not experienced life the way you have. But the fact that you do right now is your emulation of my uncle. My uncle put all of that aside. He's my nephew, I knew him when he was a baby, da-da-da. And he would come and ask advice and talk, and the one thing that kept my uncle up at night was when there was a lack of shalom bayit. I'm not talking between him and Denise. When one of the kids were in conflict with the other one. It even bothered him sometimes. And if you ever watch a Schwartz table, I have the best view of the Schwartz table. You don't have the view I have. In the middle of Amidah, and maybe Doron or somebody will explain this to me, there's random like pokes and elbows and all kinds of things that go around. Sometimes, I remember when Doron was younger, he'd get so frustrated, like, "Khalas, stop poking me already." It's true, Jacob? Jacob has no idea what I'm talking about. And Dan, who thought it was hilarious, by the way, because I'm sure that if someone taught about this stuff, it was Dan. At that point, he said, it's enough. I don't want us to, there's no point of this if it's negative. That's not the point. And so I'm blessing us all, but especially the family, to realize the greatest gift we can give Yitzchak Daniel ben Moshe Ze'ev is the gift of shalom. The gift of not just keeping Torah and doing mitzvot and being kind to people and tzedakah and kaddish and ashkavot and hilulot like we're doing now. The greatest gift is to keep doing this. To come together, to be together, to pray together, to eat together. To remember that that was the thing that made him the happiest. המרחם על כל בריאותיו. הוא יחוס ויחמול וירחם על נפש, רוח ונשמה של הנפטר בשם טוב מן העולם, יצחק דניאל במשה זאב. רוח אדוני תנחנו בגן עדן. הוא וכל בני ישראל השוכבים עמו, בכלל הרחמים והסליחות, וכן יהי רצון ונאמר אמן. תזכו למצוות.